up, my space friends? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast, a weekly show where we go over space games, particularly Star Citizen mostly, but we touch on space games, look at how they're doing, what they're doing, and if they're getting finished. And today I am joined by Yamiks, who's probably got quite a bit to say about that. Yamiks is a YouTuber, covered a lot of Elite Dangerous, but really you've branched out into a lot of games and actually covered a little bit of Star Citizen recently. So I mean, you've done that before in the past. Yeah. But I've noticed a lot more recently, so I thought I'd bring you on so we could talk a little bit about it. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Fine. Neither good nor bad. Basically, it's somewhere in the middle, and that's okay.
Okay, that's good. In the middle is great, because honestly, bad days suck.
That's the average state of human existence, though most people would consider it good. Kind of says about where they are in life, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. Anyways, you have been covering quite a few games lately, but what would you say has been kind of the main theme of your YouTube channel?
Failed attempts at comedy. There you go. That's the best one.
There's a testimonial. Is that is that the headline?
Sure, why not? Put it in my gravestone. Why not?
All right. So the comedy is one take. Any particular game genre or type of thing that you like to focus on?
My closest one was first-person shooters, and thus I went into. Oh God, the first one was Tribes Ascend. And that didn't last long, but if you want to cringe really hard, well, you can go and check those old videos of mine. Like for example, the first videos where I actually spoke was Tribes Ascend, some Tribes Ascend guides. Really bad.
Well, yeah, I mean,
setting that aside, the next one was PlanetSide 2, which I spent 4 years doing, and again, first-person shooter, and then jumped into Elite Dangerous, and that took over, exploded, and whippity-whoppity, here I am.
How did you end up going from first-person shooters to Elite Dangerous?
Well, it's not that weird of a progression, because I like first-person shooters, right? So I prefer the first-person perspective, and one day on YouTube I see suddenly videos popping up about this game called something, and it's a spaceship, right? You're looking around from the seated position. At the time I had played already Arma, where you can turn your head around, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then the menus pop up, and it's like, ooh, interactable UI that is in game space. Well, that's unusual, and the game runs okay. And you can control more parts in your vehicle, and so that's that in-depth feature. And I'm thinking, okay, that's something I haven't seen even in racing simulators, literal racing sims. So I'm thinking, okay, well, all right then. Buy it. That was actually the first game I bought at the time. Up until then, either games were gifted or I was playing free-to-play stuff. Tribes Ascend, PlanetSide, and a few other ones as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, I played Elite Dangerous just off hours of what was it, the Elite Dangerous stuff. So yeah,
I loved Elite Dangerous, but I only got to play. I played it for such a short amount of time because right as I got into Elite Dangerous, my life got super busy. But it was right around when they introduced the Thargoids. That was like 2017, 2018 time, right?
let's see. Thargoids introduced, about 2017. Yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
Right, so those were of the old guard, those that played old Elite games, Elite 1, 2, and 3, and they knew about this alien being called Thargoid, the existential thing that is encroaching on humanity there within the lore. But in Elite Dangerous, they were nowhere to be seen. And Elite Dangerous, apparently, lore-wise, came after the first war that was so secretive, blah, blah, blah. The lore is pretty stupid, but regardless. At least that's my take on it. And they basically, they suddenly just popped up one day and then sort of grabbed you out of what basically is known as a loading screen. Suddenly, the loading screen, the safest thing in Elite's gameplay, gets interrupted, and you just get pulled out, and you're thinking, well, what the fuck? So as an experience, it was really nice. Sad that that version of that cutscene like environment is no longer um, available within the game, so that sucks. Only it exists in video format. But regardless, the Targoid stuff, it was a really interesting sort of a first introduction, sort of really mysterious thing, alien stuff finally coming in. Because until then, I don't remember if we had the Guardians, but no, we had Guardians. So we only had some weird alien ruins, but nothing living and moving, right? So that sort of a first contact for at least the new that we were. Yeah, that was unique and well executed, especially considering Elite Dangerous front-end development's great audio team. They absolutely nailed it with great sounds. They made a simple sort of alien ship sort of floating in front of you, doing a little bit of light show, shaking your camera a bit, and then flying off, right? That in of itself wouldn't do much, but the sound, the music, the little details that they were experts of, added and alleviated it to great heights, if you will. That brought in hype for the Targoid stuff. But as it's known for Elite Dangerous, it stagnated hard for a long time until we got to anywhere close to even interacting with Targoids. But it always ended up being at least an interesting sort of build-up. But yeah, it was blue balling the narrative.
Yeah, I remember everybody was very excited at first, and then it just kind of
it was.
didn't move very quickly after that. Did it ever end up having like a satisfying conclusion?
Well, let me recap you then. After that first encounter, then came the second encounter. Basically, there were the barnacle sites on, small barnacles, literally on planet surfaces that you could find. There were only a few of them at the time that we could easily find, or rather had found, specific coordinates, which is, anyways, regardless. Those we already knew beforehand, and we were thinking, well, yeah, they're kind of connected because they look the same. But at one point, they would spawn, or rather, the game would spawn in a Targoid coming in and sucking off the barnacle or something like that. That became the second encounter, and that was also, a big hype moment and whatnot else. But
yeah, I mean, who doesn't like
what
a
they
good
did, no one
barnacle
knew.
sucking?
Yeah. Basically, then you skip a little bit forward after the second encounter. We start seeing, let's see if I remember correctly, but yeah, we start finding those planetary bases, right? Those big encampments, and that was just Targoid stuff, right? The big bases, and a long time. Let's see, with the base discoveries soon after, but yeah, there was a big gap between that and the second encounter moment. So we find bases. I think it was a couple of months or a month later. Damn it, I don't remember. Need to recap it, but regardless, we finally get to interact with actual Targoids in space. Though at the time we didn't have any weapons, so we had to wait for weapons. But yeah, basically. Ultimately, we get to fight finally Targoids, and that's, oh god, what was it? A year, if not year and a half later, after the first encounter, that we got to actually play against those Targoids.
That's faster than I thought it was. I thought it was like a few years.
Yeah, I might misremember this stuff because, again, at this point, I don't keep needless information in my brain. That's what internet's for. So, again, I'm very horrible at this recapping, so might be 2 years, but regardless, that was the idea there. And once we got to fight against the Targoids, all that really came in new was the Guardian stuff, weapon-wise, and the new Guardian sight. That's about it. Then at some point, saucers, the small Targoid uh, things that look like the old Elite One saucer aliens appeared that basically were just cheaper, easier to kill Targoids, and that's about it. Ever since then, all we got was just more weapons and let's see, yeah, more weapons and tools to kill them, and that's about it. And more powerful versions of Targoids, but no one really cares. There were some small little um, nuggets of odd odd changes, but nothing particularly unique. And only recently we got the motherships and stuff like that. So yeah, ultimately it's been long-winded blue balling, and even then it's sort of I don't know, it
Do you
kind
think
of
are
yeah.
the aliens important to you when it comes to a space sim? Like, are you fine with there not being any alien factions, just humanity running amok in the space, or do you want to see somebody kicking us back a little bit?
Well, that question really goes for the whole science fiction as a genre, really. Um, what are aliens used in a narrative sense for movies, stories, uh, and thus also for video games. For video games, more often aliens are just some kind of a quintessential baddie that you won't question its morality or anything like that, and that you can shoot without any hesitation. Right? That's an easiest sort of a shorthand in writing
It's actually
to sort of
that's sorry.
no,
I
no,
was gonna say that's why when I was a kid and I wasn't old enough to play M-rated games. My mom was cool with me playing Halo because I was shooting alien like these random aliens way off in space rather than like humans in Call of Duty.
Yeah, when it comes to aliens, or more specifically, robots are the best example of the screwed up. I was about to swear. The screwed up nature of censorship within just societies, generally speaking. Because hey, you can be ultra violent against robots and all kinds of stuff like that, but not anything living that has blood or extremities and stuff like that. Though when it comes to robots, you can go as hard as you can. You can still get that PG rating. So that goes back to that as well. And aliens are sort of a step above that. That they're organic, blah blah blah. But you can universally just make them look evil and nasty and what else. Star Citizen. Uh, you know what I mean. And you won't really question whether or not it's good or not to fight them and what else. And let's be frank, gaming usually doesn't want to bring in morality or nuance within its stories because, hey, that'd be too much to think about, or that'd be too hard, or that'd be too
I think you're selling folks
uncommercial.
short. I think we've got some
Oh
games
yeah,
that
no,
can stretch the
that's
brain.
what the executives think. Pure and simple. There are plenty of people that enjoy something like Fallout New Vegas with its unique and interesting story, um, factions specifically, and their own motivations as well as moralities and blah 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 blah, and games with. Great stories often have that nuance, but to make that nuance, you first of all have to be a decent writer to even figure it out and plan it out as well, and blah blah blah. There's a lot that goes into making interesting aliens and not just generic baddies. But yeah, generic baddies are a simple shorthand for something that you can shoot without being, too apprehensive. So
So is that like, do you find that do you have any preference as to whether or not there are aliens in the game? Does that even matter to you?
depends on what they do, really. What are they meant to do? If they are just baddies, honestly speaking, I hate humanity already enough, so I don't really care whether that's a human face exploding in my windshield, or is it just some baddie with a lot of teeth. sharp teeth going up against me. Really, they are easier to make, scary, kind of. But I mean, the only kind of scary creature that would work would be for a horror game. And let's be frank, most action games just tend to whittle down these creatures to just simple meat fodder and yeah, cannon fodder. So mm, it's, I don't know. That's the thing. Aliens are more colorful, but then again, they are also a lot more shallow. That's the thing. When it comes to all stories of alien races, the only exception I can think of where the game had taken its time to portray aliens truly, with their own morality and interesting approach and philosophy is Mass Effect. Yeah, Mass Effect would be the one that comes to mind immediately, and there are a few other ones, but yeah, no. When it comes to aliens are basically a shorthand for making something a baddie and making it more colorful than it being a human. Human is boring. Alien with, I don't know, a fursuit or I don't know, a lot of teeth or big mummy milkers. That's a lot more colorful than just a human. So yeah.
I'll take that as it doesn't really matter then.
Yeah, kind of. It depends on how
The
it's used,
professional
really. It
opinion on it.
always is. It depends on how it's used.
All right. Well, the Thargoids development, I think, was an interesting peek into how Elite Dangerous progressed over the years. Let's turn to Star Citizen. You've been playing that. I know you've done content for it in the past. You've been doing more pretty regularly. Recently, we did a podcast. Actually, I guess that was about Elite Dangerous. But we did a new player guide on your channel together, and then you've been putting out pretty regular reviews in the game. What brings you over to playing Star Citizen more?
Like I said last time, drive-by shootings. There you go. But it's just generally speaking. Hey, it's another space game that I've dabbled into, and fuck it, I got a little bit more time, and might as well make for that something. See whether or not folk like it, and it's just yeah, just trying something new out, not just being closed in on one specific thing, expanding the vision or horizons.
So was it that you had enough to cover before, or was it that Star Citizen wasn't quite at a place where you were ready to cover it
Oh
before?
no, the thing is, I oftentimes ended up doing elite stuff more because, well, folks that at least watch my content wanted more about Elite Dangerous. But I mean, I always wanted to expand a little bit more on just everything, right? First things first, I learned about Elite Dangerous. Okay, once I've learned about Elite Dangerous, and folk are watching that, well, I also kind of want to see where the history comes from, and that's where a couple of videos that I did on the whole space sim history came from, right? Going back and examining where this genre even popped up or how it did,
Yeah.
what were the major influences, trying out the games that the old farts right now sitting in their armchairs are saying that, oh, those are good games. Freelancer, original, Elite, and oh god damn it, Elite 2 and 3, Jesus Christ, X4s, those things that are not just, Star Citizen Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen Elite Dangerous, or occasionally No Man's Sky. Something, well, each of them do a little bit different stuff as well, and expanding that vision and knowledge and horizons of understanding is good thing that not only I can benefit from, developers.
Yeah, that's fair. Are you aiming to make content that you hope will help developers, like that they can watch and maybe get some feedback from? Or are you making it more for the entertainment value, kind of your own just interests in general?
Right, there goes a story about how Yamiks became extremely jaded. Right, so back in the day, in PlanetSide 2, I made videos for PlanetSide 2 and essentially did videos, like I did for Elite as well, but more for PlanetSide 2 back in the day, suggesting things, trying to, make kind of a helpful push, I guess, if you will, to change something within the game, or highlight something that needed a change, or something that would, help, I suppose, the game itself to advance, and what I would think would expand it, or whatever. Basically, yeah, as you said, help the game, whatever, right? But time and time again, making these good suggestions and seeing myself, even on Reddit or video format as well, a lot of good ideas, and not just oh, give me a BFG in this game, not that sort of a that stupid shit. Okay, no, something that is something smaller, like for example, maybe tweak a number here so that this makes more sense there, or change color of this other little thing, something that is super menial but would change extremely how either environment, gameplay, or approach to the whole game would be made. And it doesn't take a lot of time or effort, and not just saying, oh, make the grind less. No, specifically going into how the grind could be retained. If you want to retain the grind, just make it more engaging and more interesting, those sorts of things. Now, for PlanetSide back in the day, I made quite a bit of those sorts of suggestions, and seeing also my peers, Reddits, video formats, and so on and so forth, just making good ideas, right? Not all of them good, but quite a lot of nice ideas, and all of them being ignored, like literally 99.9% being absolutely ignored. And eventually you just think, what the fuck is the point? Unless there's a big uproar, the developers really won't care if they don't engage with the community. And PlanetSide team, even at the time, was actually quite visible on Reddits and other places as well. So they engage with the community, but when it came to actually implementing these ideas, even simple things, balance changes, right? That never really happened. And that disillusioned me from that whole approach. And then came Elite Dangerous. Oh, God. They interacted with the community even less. Oh, God. The word balance pass is basically non existent. I literally shit you not. Sorry about that. It's just non existent. Unless it breaks something tremendously within the game, allows people to exploit it, get a lot of credits, or kill something very quickly, or do something that is not exactly intended in the quickest or best way possible. But as long as the bad things, bad things can stay bad. They don't matter. The fact that there are things that allow people to exploit the game to high hell, but not affect others, we're going to change it. But when it comes to actually giving, let's say, kind of an upgrade for a cannon or something like that, or improving its viability for in comparison to other guns, nah, who cares? Like, who cares? Oh, well, this gun's been outdated and absurdly obscured there for years since the start of the game. Who cares? And that sort of attitude further disillusioned me, and so on and so forth. So these days, to answer the question, yeah, when I make videos, I honestly speak, unless it's completely stupid and I can mock it, and honestly speaking, at this point, mocking is the only way to get something to work and change. Yeah, I don't bother really suggesting anything, because, well, I ain't gonna spend my time doing the job that is supposed to be done by somebody who's supposed to be employed and paid for that. So yeah, it's a it's a very jaded stance to take, but at this point, I'm not being paid for the work that somebody else is supposed to do, so why should I, right? However, Even then, I tend to from time to time hint at a couple of things, and sometimes even slip up and say what needs to be changed, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I try not to waste my time on it because I've seen the good potential that community, Star Citizen included, suggest to, well, their developers, their individual game developers, and it's just such good ideas, like genuinely simple to implement. Good ideas just get completely discarded and forgotten completely about. It's such a shame. Sure, you can't implement every single idea that some randoms on the forums suggest, but learning from Warframe, even, one of the better community interactive development teams that take in the community's response and suggestions more than most other ones. Yeah, even they tend to slip up, but they do implement these ideas from time to time, and they do re-evaluate their games quite a bit more. So it's more rewarding to see that, hey, your idea, kind of made it. Not necessarily even your idea, that a good idea succeeded and made the game better for everyone. But when you see that be completely ignored and instead the next day implemented another fucking ship or another grind loop, well, what more than but disappointment can you feel? Sorry about that.
Well,
Long-winded, but there you go.
no, I think that's a good explanation because there's this kind of interesting. I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but
Ooh.
you'll see, especially last year, you saw it a lot. People just kind of blaming content creators or accusing content creators of like single-handedly changing Star Citizen. So I feel like you're gonna have to have a conversation with them because they believe that you're coming over here to make some major changes to the game. But that also is it's an interesting point because I do think that they manage to miss the mark when it comes to that kind of stuff, taking in feedback and making small changes, like you said. But they also do hit it sometimes. Like I don't know if you've done the mining in 319, but that they kind of came out and admitted it is something they decided to go back and do because the community was voicing their displeasure with how mining was. They wanted to like sit back and let it be how it was in December or like last year, and people made enough noise to change that up. And I think I've seen that happen a couple of times, not a ton, but there is hope.
I don't know, man. When it comes to changes for Star Citizen, it's there's a bigger topic about game design and the word planning that I could go into, but putting that aside, you hit upon the point that is very poignant here. Uh, Sadly, within the games, when it comes to improving and developers listening to community, uh, sadly, these days, unless you're making a lot of stink or you have extremely good development team that has their fingers on the pulse and make a point to be what was the word? Hold on. Um, not out of touch. Yeah, there we go. Quite a lot of developers tend to be very out of touch with the game they're making. So unless you're making that extra effort, you're really not gonna see any changes come up
I feel
unless
like
unless you make a lot of stink.
I feel like out of touch developers is the definition of what happened with that recent Saints Row game.
Uh,
I don't know. It was so completely off of what.
Saints
It's,
Row. That's a different topic.
yeah,
See,
that's a much
the
different
whole
topic.
no. The thing is, Saints Row is a whole game, right? So Saints Row's story was, yeah, it's a different kind of out of touch. It's out of touch with the society and well, the gaming, well, not communities, let's just say, just people who play games, right? Being out of touch of just what would make for a fun, interesting game. You can make fun, interesting game that says something, and then you can make a game that just simply has coating of something. if that makes sense. But yeah, when I talk about out of touch when it comes to game development and game developers, well, in sense of let's take Elite Dangerous because I like to shit on Elite Dangerous. That's me. Uh, there's that approach that, hey, your coders, your audio artists, sure, fine, they don't need to play the game constantly and interact with the community constantly, and that's not feasible. Obviously they need to do their work. But when it comes to game designers, now those do need to actually interact and played their own game. One term that I've been using for Elite Dangerous in the last 2 years or so, more and more because of the Odyssey, was it seems that developers don't play their own game. At least the person that makes the decision as to what to make and how to make it just doesn't play the game, so doesn't really know what's the biggest problems to it. Because if you just play, hell, even Star Citizen, doesn't really matter which one, you immediately do feel what needs to change and what needs to be implemented in order to improve the experience. Even if it is in a malicious way to make sure that the grind is sufficiently long. Even then, you do need to play it. You do need to test it. And yes, QA testers can do just that much, but as a game designer who makes the decisions, especially game director, you need to properly go through the game that you are making. And oftentimes, as the time progresses, we all tend to play less and less of it, and because we already know it, and we tend to, well, ignore things that we kind of subconsciously already know works, right? But coming in fresh, yeah, it's a hard thing to do, and the longer time goes on, the more you need to pay attention to it. Again, I'm
How do
being very
you
vague on the. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, how do you feel about the way that they're testing with the amount of? I mean, they're using a massive pool of people to do all this. It might not be the developers that are doing it every day. I know you can spot developers in the game at times, but like they're basically opening it up to millions of people and saying, "Throw us the errors that you're getting." Do you think that's working out for them?
Bug reports, you mean? Bug reports are helpful, sure, but fundamentally, bug reporting is well, you get, let's say, 10,000 entries a day, right? Well, a lot of them are similar. Okay, you categorize them, but it's, again, it's hard to comment on the QA. Generally speaking, it's a different sort of approach, but well, bug reporting is one thing. Designing is another one, and well, it's a lot. Basically, it's a lot. So
Yeah.
it,
Okay. Well, let's go
it's
back.
hard to comment on specifics because again, it's such a vast topic. Sorry about it. But, yeah.
No. It's hard to say how effective it can be because, like you said, there's a lot. Like you can have a bug reporting system, but people will not use it efficiently, and you'll get a lot of duplicates. You'll get a lot of things that get missed, and there's a
Yeah,
lot to it.
bug reports, generally speaking, they are useful, sure, but it it only shows what the people encounter at the time, and not necessarily show what the underlying problems are. It's sort of a reporting symptoms, quite literally. It's just symptom reporting rather than the cause of it. So
Yeah.
and it's up to developers. Well, first of all, it has to be siphoned through the QA, and then has to be found as the core problem, or well, siphoned through, and identified. There we go, as what is the problem. So it's big task for any game,
What do
really.
you think of when so they like run these events, especially after 318? They put in persistent entity streaming. That's the technology that they're using on the back end, and they've been trying to stress it. It seems, at least this is a theory that people have, that they've been trying to stress it and entice more people to jump into the game at the same time and kind of overload it. Now that is good for them because they're getting data and stuff, but it also makes the game run worse for everybody else who's trying to play at the time. How do you feel about that style of testing on a live environment?
Well, Star Citizen is an interesting case. I mean, it's alpha, right? So it's supposed to be a test server, not a real game, not a
Right.
real testing environment, not a real gameplay, specific experience, but literally a testing environment. But then again, it's being presented as a game. It's sort of misleading you in that sort of a sense that, this is playable. There is gameplay in it. So I don't know, man. I doubt that developers for Star Citizen are specifically going out of their way to, use the environment to screw you over. Because let's be frank, fundamentally, the servers they're using are shit. And ultimately, I personally, well, at least I assume, that the servers that we have, the way Star Citizen works currently, is supposed to be very just temporary. 10 years temporary, but regardless, temporary until they can introduce the, what was it? Server meshing, and that's gonna be the real thing. So testing just some random server that is just a temporary thing that is gonna be just cast away is kind of pointless, I would say, like most other things within Star Citizen. But anyways, so
You would say that server meshing is pointless?
server meshing. Oh god, it's an interesting one. Server meshing, server meshing. Well, now server meshing is a nebulous technology, and again, what they want to do with the technology is not exactly feasible for the majority of the world, I would say, just because of how shit, generally speaking, is the overall infrastructure for internet around the globe. So that's at least my first take. But again, it's really hard to say what they will produce or what they will do with the server meshing as a feature or how they will implement it. So until we really know more, it's just a nebulous term that they are putting out and saying that, oh, well, we want to make this a seamless thing. But how that will turn out or what even is the general plan is, well, very hush-hush for. So
Well, I mean, they've come out and explained like pretty clearly that the ultimate goal is just to split up the game space so that they're putting less load on a given server. Do you not think that's possible?
possible, yes, but what the experience will be, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah,
don't know
that's the
what it's going
thing.
to end up playing like, but theoretically, I mean, we've seen Spatial OS pull this off. I've heard that there are a couple other games that are doing stuff like this.
Well, honestly, I'm of belief that you should just stick with dedicated servers. Really, PlanetSide 2 managed 1,000 players within the server. There are and not a server, but a map, and it is playable for the most part. At the maximum loads, a little bit less, but consistently, PlanetSide is capable of doing it. So to some degree, at least, we know that kind of a gameplay is possible. Whether or not high fidelity stuff is possible is a whole different story. But splitting up, I mean, I see server meshing as basically a glorified peer-to-peer. And well, let's be frank, I'm not keen on peer-to-peer, especially for first-person shooters. But even for space sims like. Oh well, look at that! Elite Dangerous is a peer-to-peer, and it's not great. So yeah, it's barely functional, I would say. But I don't know.
Peer to peer
We'll
is in
see.
like data transfer between clients?
Peer-to-peer, right? So there are. Well, the way peer-to-peer networking works essentially is that you are sending data to whoever you are connected to, or at least. Well, yeah, peer-to-peer is when you're just sending data between the participants of the instance. All the information that are pertaining to you are being sent to the instance members, and the instance members are sending back the information about themselves, and thus you're seeing that's why you see a lot of rubber banding within peer-to-peer. With a dedicated server base like Star Citizen, for example, you have a dedicated server that handles the data, where everyone's sending in the data about the environment, well, rather what they are doing and what their position is, and the server handles sending out the data about the current state of the game world. Uh, So that's the difference, and that's why the dedicated server system is a lot more precise and better. Uh, so yeah, peer-to-peer. Again, if you have a bad internet with a peer-to-peer, that person who has bad internet will be, well, just teleporting around the place, while everyone else might look okay because the information from that person is coming in later. Um,
But isn't Star
Again,
Citizen sticking with the dedicated server, like you said? Because
server meshing, as far as I understand, the server meshing is supposed to be a bunch of dedicated servers around the globe, able to take in players and sort of distributing the load depending on where you are in the space, as far as I understand. There's, oh
but they're all
god,
connected to a replication layer, which is supposed to be kind of like that dedicated server.
yeah, it's again, it's yeah. Let's just say I don't know.
I
It's
will
just dumb.
I'll this is the way I feel about a lot of tech that they talk about. From my perspective, they explain it to a way where it makes sense. I just need them to prove it. But I don't necessarily doubt that they can do it. I just I'm always considerate of the fact that the whatever we end up getting at the end of this, when all these systems are working together, is probably not going to be what we're imagining in our heads. Which, when is a game ever?
Well, when it comes out, if it comes out, we'll see. At this point, Star Citizen is just using dedicated servers, and I think they should just stick with it. There's the idea of just making this a seamless transition, and this one big server like cluster being the server is a really cool idea, right? And that'd be really nifty. But frankly, it's a new tech that fundamentally, I don't think is really going to work out and end up being just a poorer version between dedicated servers, which are the best experience in at least current state, versus, oh, it might be something in between the peer-to-peer and a dedicated server sort of experience. Maybe, at best of cases. Worst of cases, it might be the worst of both.
Either way, I look
So,
forward to it. I'm somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody needs to push forward. It's
I don't
obviously
think
not
it's Chris Roberts, that's for sure.
anybody. I don't care if it's the homeless person down the street and they've got a computer that they can try. If you're trying something new and you're pushing it forward, I appreciate that. And it's not the same scale, but like SpaceX is kind of in that position. They have failed a lot and they've messed up a lot, but they're still kind of trying, and it's interesting to see other people kind of trying to catch up and jump into that industry. I hope Star Citizen inspires other people to do similar things. If anything, even if Star Citizen fails, maybe we could see another project that perfects what they've done and does it better.
Yeah, progress is what progress is. Sure, every developer tries to put in some sort of new thing, a new spin to their games or technologies, and some of them
Every
succeed, others, most of them don't.
every
Sadly.
yeah, every dev, you can go look at Assassin's Creed and see all the new puzzle types they put into their game using the same controls in the with the same lines. That's like there are some games that really just don't even try. There are a lot of games that really just don't even try. So I appreciate games
Yeah,
like Star Citizen doing interesting things like this.
yeah, yeah. With Star Citizen, there's a lot of feelings you can feel.
There is. How about we talk a little bit about them actually? So when you
Go
first
for it.
started doing content for Star Citizen, how did you feel about it? And like and I don't mean like just over the last few weeks. I mean like literally the first time years
Yeah.
ago. And how do you feel about it now compared to then?
Oh God! Right. So my first experience around 2017 when I picked up Star Citizen. Yeah, let's see. I need to go back and take a look at when my first video for Star Citizen was, but yeah, it was somewhere around 2017, 2.6.3 or 2.6.2 was the version. Regardless, that was the time when you could literally go in INI files and remove online play. And
Yeah, I
that
remember
gave you
that.
literally 50% frame
Yeah.
rate, which is, I missed that. Also, that was the time when you could literally crouch and faint. I missed that.
That was
Anyway,
cool when people could get offline.
oh, it was so funny. But anyways, Star Citizen. When I first picked it up, I saw a lot of videos around, ships and walking tours and all that stuff. this a lot. But I thought, well, okay, I was making at the time or nearing the end of the ship reviews for LA Dangerous. And I thought, oh, well, Star Citizen has hyper poly, but, shit frame rate, but still hyper poly spaceships that work for the most part. And I thought, well, okay, that'd be pretty cool to make a series for that too, right?
For the most part.
After all. Yeah. And then I tried it. Oh boy, yeah. As a first-person shooter fan, my expectations are quite high when it comes to just response and frame rates and just simple basic optimization and so on and so forth. And see, the problem is Star Citizen constantly tries to sell and market itself as a game, as a this functioning environment, and unless you have a really, really good PC, even then you're gonna see a lot of, well, let's be frank, really shit performance and results in the trailers, for example, for Star Citizen or their own YouTube channel. You constantly see these polished either trailers that are literally playing like the normal Star Citizen would, but on a really high frame rate and a really smooth gameplay, and it
Would it
kind of
be?
sells.
Would you want to see the trailers like have the hitches and the frame rate drops? That would actually be really funny if they released
That
a
would be
trailer with that.
representative. That's the thing. I absolutely despise misleading marketing. And Star Citizen
so you
has
don't like
indulged
marketing?
Yeah. Hate every single marketer out there. Fuck them to death. But no, you can represent your product in an honest light and not highly embellish what it is and what it does. And Star Citizen, sadly, constantly, in my view, does that at every possible chance, and that's partly also why they garnered so much attention, because when you're looking at the videos, oh yeah, it's doing really well, or wow, this gameplay is really cool. And yeah, if it worked like it does, yeah, that would be the case. But when you drop into the Star Citizen itself, that was my experience. I see stuttering left and right. I see just stuff not working, and frankly speaking, yeah, it was an alpha at the time, so that was my first experience. And within the first 30 minutes, my tone changed from, oh well, yeah, it has problems, but it's early access, whatever stuff, but it was just so bad, so horrendous. Ooh.
That was a rough
could not.
time.
Doesn't matter which version it was. Every version, the same pattern changed. And the
Oh,
thing
so
is,
this is across the whole spectrum of your
yeah,
time.
no, it hasn't really changed for me.
Okay.
It hasn't changed. That's the thing. That's what I mean by when I say, well, Star Citizen hasn't really changed since then. Yeah, they added a few more gameplay approaches, mining, or what was it, the fuck, jails. They added salvaging. They added a few more missions here and there, ships and blah 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 blah. Blah. But fundamentally, the same performance, the same experience, the same jank crap is still around, and it hasn't improved. The core basics of the product hasn't improved to such a level that you would say, yes, it has improved. All they have done, in my view, right, is that they just simply pushed more features on it. And the word feature creep is indeed something that comes to mind a lot, rather than improving. So
What's kind of an example of feature creep since then?
ships and the gameplay they provide, or the promise for gameplay, feature creep. Jesus fucking Christ. Server meshing is a good example of it. I don't. Yeah, no. We can start from the start, from the original idea of Star Citizen back in 2012, right?
Well, yeah, no. So that's why I wanted to start from 2017, or rather,
Yeah,
was it
but
2017 or 2018 you were talking about?
2017, end of 2017 is when I've picked up.
Was it before or after 3.0? Because that makes a big difference.
3.0, I did live through the 3.0 transition, so yeah, I did see whatever they implemented with 3.0. They removed the offline capability, blah blah blah.
You would say performance-wise, 3.1, 3.2 plays the same as the game does now?
Let's see, 3.0. Oh God. Well, because the servers were constantly being forced upon you, and you couldn't log in without that, right? Yeah, the performance. That's the weird thing. The performance really hasn't changed too much. Again, it really depends more on how the servers feel at the current date, rather than what the version is, which is weird as well, but
You
kind of
feel like the
expected, I guess.
you feel like the servers run any better?
Hard to think back on it, but same jittery, stuttery physics. So not really. Technology, sure, probably has improved since they are using the Amazon servers. I think. Yeah, better, more horsepowery hardware does improve a few things, but then again, Chris Roberts has been pushing more crap onto Star Citizen, so it's been sort of evening out. As soon as they get a step, in direction of performance, they cram something more on it. It feels like, at least. So
Feels like a smartphone OS update. They're like, yeah, we put bigger batteries in the phone, but the CPU does more processes. Okay,
yeah.
so you mentioned that the gameplay hasn't really changed. What would you want to see from gameplay to say it has? Like, what would be a realistic new gameplay mechanic, like a new feature that you would say actually makes a difference to the game?
Fuck features. No. That's my take there. Um, Thing is, when I say Star Citizen hasn't changed. Sure, they added, as I said previously, the additional features. The things to do within Star Citizen, right? The jail, the mining, the salvaging, the oh god, a couple of other missions out there. The bunker stuff, as well as 890 jumps, the blah 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 blah. For first-person stuff, right? For ship stuff, there's also other plethora of stuff. Racing is a good one that I actually like, but regardless. For me to say that Star Citizen has improved, that's the core difference. Again, I do recognize features have been added, but in general sense, Star Citizen hasn't changed for me. The same bad performance still persists. The same bad physics, the same bad UI, AI, and many other things just pertain that are just the core tenets of not just Star Citizen, but a game. That's what I, get annoyed a lot about, because you log in and you see low frame rate or stuttery frame rate, and you're just seeing your dropped item just wobble around on the ground, right, as it lands.
So it's
Has
kind of like the general stability and like feel of playing the game then.
Yeah, I would say so, because I go with the basics first and foremost. You see a game in early access, it releases with an idea and a demo-like sort of environment, and it shows that okay, yeah, well, we'll expand the map later, or we're gonna add features later. The first thing that you often tend to see is the stability and the core principles of the gameplay being set in place. Physics being a great example, design being another one, and then just that being built upon. Well, at the same time, for me, Star Citizen feels like it just tosses more crap on that is barely even thought out. I mean, a great example for that would be, oh gods, selling land. Remember that? The insurance forms for for the land stuff. Where did that feature go, and what does it even do? Or is there and
That was
other
a that
other
was a that
things
was a
as well?
dumb move on their part. But to clarify, they didn't sell land.
No,
They
they
just
didn't
sold the
sell
little
land.
beacon, which
No,
basically
no.
everybody else is going
What
to buy at some point.
what they sold is, as I like to joke about it, is an insurance form. Not insurance. They're selling literal paper that you sign on for insurance. Not even the insurance.
To to basically just say you can get land at some point. at some time.
Yeah. Or rather, get insurance, whatever you put on that land, and then of course there's the whole thing about the building stuff, and so
Well, I
yeah.
mean, what else would it be other than insurance? Insurance that you actually own the land,
What?
as opposed to the physical land itself. Like insurance that UEE, the government in the game,
Yeah.
identifies that you own whatever land you claim.
Uh, as far as I understand, the land claim tools that they announced a while back was literally just a stake that you put down and then go back to whatever registry there,
Yeah.
and once you claim that spot of land, whatever you put on that land is insured, and yeah, technically you can kind of say that it is your land, but well, fundamentally, it's just an insurance for whatever you put on that
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
It would have been so much worse if they had sold actual land. They would have been screwed.
that would remind me
That would
of
have been Earth
this
2.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
about to say a
Yeah.
scam.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
I personally, so I've not followed a game being made before, but when I see the way that they add things into the game, they kind of just throw stuff in, like you said. Like two, I think, really good examples are ship docking, which came in and worked for a couple of ships. They basically said, okay, the feature works, move on. Or ship naming, which works for like 5 different ships. And once again, they were like, okay, name goes on the ship, technology works, we move on. And it does feel like they have done that a lot over the last like 5 years, just kind of thrown features in because they're things that they eventually want to be working. But I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, because like eventually those features will have to work, right? And I'm assuming that they're doing that because they require it for something else that's going to be working.
Well, when it comes to throwing feature, again, there's not necessarily anything bad about throwing just more features onto the pile, and eventually you're gonna have to do that, whatever, right? But when you're making a game, right? I would kind of like to see, especially when it comes to presenting that unfinished product to the public, like Star Citizen is doing with the early access stuff. You would refine the core basics of it and then build upon it. A pretty good example for me is Subnautica. Subnautica 1 and 2, both of them released in a very bare bones alpha versions, literally just a basic environment with barely anything actually even textured out more than just 10 meters away from you, right? And they just keep on building, throwing more features on it and adding more stuff on it. But the difference is that with Subnautica, yeah, that first release, even the performance is not great, but very quickly, the first thing that they do manage to make properly is the physics and, well, the stability, one would say. Of course, optimization comes and goes. You usually don't do optimization very at the start, right? You usually tend to do it at the end of the whole life cycle of the games. But for something that is released as early as, let's say, Star Citizen, Subnautica, whatever, there's a certain level of optimization that is done and has to be done. But for Star Citizen, the servers are so bad. Yeah,
Optimization.
optimization is another one. Man, the servers are just so bad, and they kind of make you forget that it's more of a server fault than the actual Star Citizen client fault, right? And gods, but even then, physics. I would say physics still doesn't quite feel right for Star Citizen. The character movement also is really very basic at
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so when it comes to basics upon building blocks upon which you would add more stuff or would rely on are not even set in stone properly before you move on to the next one, and then you see medical gameplays being half-assedly thrown out. Then there's salvaging that is half-assedly kind of thrown out. Mining, the same thing, and then you need to redo it time and time again, and you
But
start to wonder, well,
they can't do final mining. They couldn't have released
well,
mining with the gadgets because we couldn't even, like, they didn't even have asteroids that worked that way at that time.
wouldn't asteroids be like one of the core features or
Yeah,
core
but
building blocks.
maybe they had
Maybe
to
make
wait
those
and to
first.
make maybe they had to wait to make asteroids until they could get item 2.0 to work, which defines materials in them. Hey man,
That
this is
goes
why I
into a
don't make
bigger
games.
no, there's a bigger topic as to how the planning goes on for Star Citizen, and again we're just going back to the whole idea that they're just haphazardly pushing out a part of a feature, then going back to it 10 more times and wasting quite a lot of time when, if you had or at least you would think that something was planned out, you would implement step by step in a full way rather than saying, oh, today we've redesigned this old feature for the 5th time. Why say redesign, right? So
I don't think they're redesigns. I don't think mining has been redesigned.
sure, mining maybe not, but
Salvage hasn't either. I
I'm
think
more
the
referring to ship combat though,
yeah, the
and
flight model I think is the one that really saw some redesigns.
UI is a great example of redesign. I've lived through 2, if not maybe 3 versions of it. The old 2-point version of UI,
Was bad.
it was fine. It was fine
Mm.
for a bit. And then now
It
we
worked.
have
It
what
was
we
running
have.
on a technology that's not even supported anymore.
Well,
So they had
planning.
to, and that wasn't, I mean, but that's Adobe. What is Adobe going to tell them 10 years before they cancel Flash? Hey guys, I know you're making a game. Just don't use our technology because it's going to be gone in 10 years.
Eh, well, also it wasn't really designed visually speaking.
Yeah. But that's why they went and made their own tool to make UI so that they
No,
wouldn't happen again.
yeah, again, fine. Yeah, technologies can change and so on and so forth. And porting over the old version, not necessarily might work, but visually speaking, they had, or at least I think they had, design set in stone.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. Then they came out with the current UI that is visually the way it is. And now we already know what the next UI visually will look like. And it's like, are you really just so willing to just throw all that work that your previous artist did? Or did you even design what, or rather plan out what was supposed to be in the UI, in the mobiGlas, for example, right? Was there even a plan of, a general idea as to what the UI needs to have by the end of it? Or are you just remaking it every time there's some new feature that Mr. Roberts decides to shit out?
Well, the way I saw it was that they made like a mobiGlas have the basics that we would need for the game at the time, which it didn't like. So, for instance, I think the Galaxy map is a good example. They made it at a time when we only could really travel so far. So they built it with like the basics. But I don't know. I don't know if I would have expected them to build in things like waypoints if there was no way to even select or share them for a few years. Granted, I do think that we should have gotten that earlier. But I see what you're saying. There's either doing something polished, doing it that way, and making sure however you can that you'll never have to redo it again. And then there's like the whole iteration aspect. And I think there's a balance to be had.
Iteration happens. Again, I'm accounting for iteration. What I'm talking about when I say the word planning is an actual plan how things will work out. And yeah, the constant remaking of little things or larger things tend to hint that somebody had a plan for this thing, and then they thought, oh well, it's not gonna work out. And sure, sometimes that happens, but with Star Citizen, it just happens so often. There doesn't seem to be a general plan for what Star Citizen is, and with every new added feature or any new idea that somebody had within the company, seems to be so willy-nilly, willfully discarding the old stuff and sort of postponing the general development to just remake stuff to align with the new idea. So willfully.
I do wonder how common or uncommon that is in gaming to kind of.
Again, we're never really gonna know because every game is slightly different, right?
Yeah.
So you can only guess at it. So but yeah.
Yeah, because like the idea of you want to make the game that you know is going to be good, but at some point you kind of have to just cut yourself off and say, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. and there's definitely a big conversation to be had about how much money somebody
Yeah.
deserves in that pursuit.
Well, money is one thing, but rather how much time you have and how further can you willfully are willing to will it push it. Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
speak very good. But no, it's basically how far you are willing to push. At some point, you have to have somebody within the company with a goddamn plan to say that, okay, it'd be nice to have that feature later down the line, but how about we just sit down and finish something so that we can, continue building upon some rigid foundation rather than ever malleable sinking sand or something. Yeah. Or house. There you go.
Speaking of finishing,
Yes.
answer me this question. Do you think that Star Citizen will ever release? Gotta love that
Star
one.
Citizen is a good question, but for Squadron 42, yeah, we can expect at least some kind of a thing from Squadron 42, but for Star Citizen, I don't know. That's the thing. Fundamentally, the ship sales are far too profitable, and the reason why it's profitable is partially to say that, well, hey, this is still building. As soon as they say that this is 1.0, we're releasing this thing. Ultimately, the charade about selling ships for upcoming gameplays or upcoming video game might not be accepted in a general public, I would say, because hey, now it's a finished game. What the hell do you need that extra money for from the ship sales? And I doubt the ship sales will stop even with 1.0. It's far too profitable, and you'd be stupid to cut it off. But
That's actually, I think so. Let's talk about that, because if they say it's 1.0, do you really think
yeah,
they'll have all the star systems done by then?
hard to say. Hard to say what they think of what is a 1.0, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't think.
they said it's going to be 100 systems, but that was
That was before they like tried to
nearly
do
10
planets.
years ago.
Yeah. So like that's changed. So their 1.0 is probably going to be something like 5 systems or something, right?
And that's
they
fine. You can copy paste systems, no problem. Putting stuff into them that they actually are different, now that's a whole different topic. So the fact that Star Citizen is a one system, again, I like to joke about it, but I don't take it seriously. One star system equals 1,000 star systems. You can copy paste files easily, and the same thing goes with star systems. Like anything, code can be copy pasted, models can be copy pasted, literally everything digital can be copy pasted. So whether or not Star Citizen has one system or 1,000 doesn't matter. What matters is what is in them and how they interact and how they differentiate and make the overall experience blah 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 blah.
but
So
the but if they just hit 5 systems, they obviously want to add more. I think that would be their reasoning for why they still need ship sales.
doesn't matter if it's 3 systems, as long as there is sufficient enough gameplay to warrant the sale price or the work they've done. Fine. So yeah, for me, the number of systems is really moot point, because especially after Elite Dangerous, with billions of star systems, you can have billions of star systems, but it ain't gonna make your sandbox better.
But that's
Especially
why
when you
Star
look at the
Citizen
Assassin's Creed.
That's why it's taken so long, though, because they're not copy pasting the systems. They're doing factions, they're doing different companies and planets and moons, and even all the way down to like the fashion items in the systems are all different. So that will take a lot more time and effort for them to develop, even after they hit that 1.0.
Thing is, Fallout New Vegas was released in 18 months with really good story, lots of factions, and their interactability with a good story, right? So, to me, hearing people say, "Oh, well, there are a lot of factions that they are, designing and making and clothing articles and all that stuff," it can be done, and
And why
yes,
isn't
it can
anybody
be
doing
done.
it?
Oh,
Everybody
people
keeps
are.
saying this.
Second
No.
Life.
Who's doing it? Is Starfield doing it? Are they going to put
Second-wise,
custom factions in
Starfield,
all
that's
of
a
the
good question.
star systems? Are they going to have different gangs and different vibes in the different systems, or are they going to make planets that you can go on and explore and do a few quests and do some missions?
Well, that's the thing. X4 has several factions. Hell, technically, Elite Dangerous also has, but let's
How many
forget
planets
about
can you
that.
land on an X4?
X4, not be none, yes. Though is landing, touching down on ground really the sort of a mark, such a big separation
It's
in
it's
gameplay
not, but
terms?
like they're all different types of games. And
No,
so when
absolutely.
I hear the
Sure.
idea that like Star Citizen is somehow not able to do this when Fallout New Vegas did, and therefore Star Citizen is doing it wrong, they're different games.
Just because they are different games, they're not uncomparable. Again, you can compare games as long as you're being, up forth about what you're doing. Sure,
Yeah.
you're not gonna compare a water pistol from one game with a literal spaceship in Warhammer 40k, right? Although, if you really want to, you kind of can. Again, it depends on what the theoretical approach you go for, and we're just comparing just for the fun of it, because, well, frankly, it's out of our hands.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, my point about Star Citizen is what Star Citizen is doing for the most part is nothing new. And things that it has done or wants to do has been done better in other places. Factions are a great example, with a lot of other games having, fundamentally better examples. Again, Fallout New Vegas with the story-wise, or the way factions interact and blah, 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 blah.
I
Sure.
agree with you there. I mean, Star
So
Citizen's faction system is, we'll say, alpha implementation at this point.
Alpha, yeah, Alpha for such a long time. Again, we're going back to the planning out stage. Shouldn't these things already be planned out?
I don't know.
So yeah, that's the thing. We're all guessing. We're all speculating at
Yeah.
this point, and that's part of the fun. Hey, I'm saying that what Star Citizen is doing is nothing really special, except for maybe a few outstanding things. Others may disagree, and that's fine, and that's fun, right?
So what would you say would like warrant a release of the game?
Oh gods, with the Star Citizen, fundamentally. Oh gods. Let's see. For me, Star Citizen would be fine if it released with this one system with good missions that would be at least approximately similar to. Let's see. Story wise or the gameplay wise, right? If Star Citizen right now refined everything that it has, literally everything, stop any new of the features, just throw them out. If Star Citizen released right now in the state with all the features, fully polished and finished, because let's be frank, the space combat stuff is not finished, blah blah blah. It's the old version, whatever, right? Once that's implemented and other things, right, properly redone, add the story, a couple of missions so that it doesn't feel like Elite
Just a
Dangerous, where you
sandbox,
just
kind of. Yeah.
where you're just throwing out missions upon missions that are pointless, right? Star Citizen could be called a game, however, not a great one, but hey, the features that it would have would still be countable as a game and gameplay, right? So
So you feel like this, besides like stability and some
as
story
I
and
said,
like the
no,
core of the game, you do feel like it's something that could be released?
if Star Citizen refined its optimization, if it
Yeah.
introduced, again, if it sorted out optimization, if it sorted out the features that are, still in progress of being made for the current existing stuff, right, and stopped any new additions, refining of the existing stuff that Star Citizen already has, if they just refined it and finished those parts that are already out, yeah, it'd be a pretty good game. Well, depends on the performance again, but yeah, let's say performance is really good, right? Star
Like
Citizen would look
normal.
fantastic if it had good performance. Add even hell an 8-hour simple story chain, right? and you're done. You made a really good space sim, even if it's one system. Doesn't matter because it looks good. It has plenty of variety within that one system and within things in it. Yes, it does feel empty, but fundamentally there are less finished AAA titles out there right now. So in the modern day, it wouldn't be such a big sell.
Makes me sad.
Yeah, I know, right? How low our standards have dropped at this point, but that's kind of my pet peeve oftentimes with Star Citizen as well. If they just stop adding more crap and pushing that finish line, right, constantly forward, just refining it after a couple of years, you could have at least some sort of a jumping off point and building foundation upon which you can continue raising that bar and continue releasing stuff. And people would actually get to play a real game rather than just experience a test server or a test server for a test server.
Yeah. But if they stopped now, we wouldn't even get refining gameplay.
Who cares?
This guy.
There are plenty of features already. Just
What?
stop and finish something.
I mean, if they haven't put in a feature that they said on day one, wouldn't that be pretty rude?
Honestly, at this point, the majority of the fandom will swallow it. And yes, I'm being very patronistic right now. But let's be frank about ourselves. Majority will swallow it and will still accept it. So
I think they're missing. I think they're missing so much right now. But that's the thing about Star Citizen. It's like it's got so much diverse gameplay that something that doesn't matter to one person is the only reason somebody else plays. And I think they kind of feel that responsibility. That's the corner they put themselves in, but I think they feel that. And so they're like, okay, we got to make sure these are all pretty well-rounded.
Well, honestly, I don't know, man. We'll see what comes. Yeah.
So I feel like we've kind of touched on this, but I want to get like a straight up answer on it. What are the worst problems with Star Citizen at the moment? Let's include both, because I know you're going to talk about stability and stuff, but let's also talk about maybe like game design decisions.
Well, the worst part of Star Citizen, again, I can say the stability, right? I can say the planning is definitely a big part of it, but those are kind of just symptoms of, basically Chris Roberts. It's a symptom of him as a game maker, if he can even be called that anymore. I mean, whatever, fine. Again, I'm being snarky there, but fundamentally, the feature creep. And the feature creep comes from the consistent persistence of pushing forward those goalposts and just adding more crap.
Okay. I gotta ask though.
Yeah.
Is if they like talked about a feature back, like I said at the beginning, like year one or whatever, and then they didn't really talk about it, and then they brought it back in now to bring it into the game, would that feel like feature creep? Because then you have to go back and look at all the things that they've talked about. And I mean, like, obviously that's kind of a cop-out, but there are examples of that kind of thing where like they introduced a ship or something and they're like, okay, this is the ship, it does data running is going to be in the game, but we got to do the data first. And then they come back 5 years later and they're like, okay, now we're working on data running. Would that feel like feature creep?
Well, feature creep is just, kind of would be, because, well, hey, originally, sure, fine, you can cut features from a game, and that often happens. I mean, with what was it, Cyberpunk, we saw quite a lot of features actually come out after the release. That
screw them for that.
A couple of things were planned and they were cut out. And with Elder Scrolls Skyrim, right? That one had, like, for example, an arena, whole map was made, right, and that was cut. So it's okay to cut out features, and sure, it's also okay to bring them back. Fundamentally, feature creep comes when you just keep on pushing more crap out. Cutting them out is management of that, or stopping work on some parts. That's, again, management. So bringing them back is reintroduction of the same feature, and it's still a feature creep. It's still addition of a new goalpost. So, yeah.
Okay.
That would be my take.
It's another interesting angle because people who join the game now don't have that all that context of things that they might have talked about in the past. Like they talked about I think a good example, resource management. They started developing it like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and kind of explained how it was going to work and what it was going to do to ships. And then they sort of reintroduced it to the community recently as like, okay, this is it's past the design phase and now they're actually implementing it. And then people reacted to it. So you kind of see that idea of like people think it's something new that they're bringing in right then when it was they just weren't really talking about it. And I think they suffer from a problem where if they're not talking about the features they're working on, people forget that they're supposed to be in the game.
That's just the public's reception. So public's reception is not indicative of whether or not a game is feature creep or not. So, meh.
It is for that person.
Well, sure, fair enough. I don't know, man.
I see where you're coming from, though. There is definitely some feature creep in this game. I will
Some?
not deny that. Like I said, like I said, it's about how we view it. There's a lot of things that they've talked about in the past that I'm like expecting them to bring back up.
Fundamentally, yeah, we can go into semantics and say, yeah, okay, the word feature creep, whatever, that means the blah, blah, blah. And
because like they released the Endeavor. Okay, the Endeavor is a ship that has some ridiculous qualities about it. And so like when they start working on it at some point, people are going to be like, what is this feature creep? When in reality, there are people who spent like however many hundreds of dollars 10 years ago to get that ship. So they have to make the decision of either saying, screw these features, we're not going to put them in until after the game is released. You guys don't get your ship until after the game is released. Or they take the time to go back and do it.
no comment, I guess. All right. I don't know what to say really about that.
Why don't we finish off flipping the tables? I want to know if you have any questions.
Well, we can go with sure, why not? What's your take on the worst part of Star Citizen, right?
The star map, you mean?
Oh, really? Such a small little thing?
It causes me so much pain.
I do want to strangle whoever designed it. I genuinely want to strangle whoever designed it because I would take literally Unity UI basic flat map example. I'll take that. The cheap piece of shit that it is, right? I'll take that by a literal intern made.
The worst part of the game. The worst part of the game, I think, is the nature that it's in development. So, like, anything that is done is viewed as being done and good, and, like, it's set. So, like, they'll do something, they'll put a vehicle or a weapon in the game or an item in the game, or they'll add a new feature and clearly change it up or do something with it to promote testing or just to kind of, like, make sure it works and then move on. And people will look at it and say, holy crap, this sucks. This isn't going to be good. And it's like, well, I mean, there's not even the right NPCs at that base to fight you yet. And I know we're going back to that idea of these are the things that you would think that they would have gotten first, but the point still stands. They're not there. And it sucks that it's so easy to miss that because it makes this game's development very frustrating.
It's a decent point you bring up because basically that sort of argument is saying, oh well, hey, it's your fault for misunderstanding. You just
I'm
don't
not blaming
understand
anybody.
it. No, that literally is. Well, people are complaining that it's a feature that has been put in
No.
there.
I didn't say that the problem was people complaining. The problem is that it is so hard for CIG to communicate that. It's hard for that to be made clear.
I see. Okay. Fair enough.
It's easy to view the game as a finished game, and that ruins the experience for you. And I think that hurts like the way that people play the game. It hurts how people feel when they come away from the game.
Yeah. So yeah, but the problem with that sort of statement also is that CIG aren't really doing themselves any favors when they are promoting the features with trailers, with whatever, well, showcases as a finished thing when frame rates are really stable, when everything looks so glossy, right? When it actually is not just a cinematic, when you understand that it's not just a cinematic, this is supposed to be a representation of what the actual gameplay is, and somebody from outside is looking. For example, my one of my pet peeves was with a medical gameplay trailer, if you remember that one. Everything is just so smooth. Everything's so gameplay like, right? What do you expect from Star Citizens in testing environment, in gameplay examples, right? And then you drop in and it's just a stuttery mess and so on and so forth. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, that oftentimes we do misunderstand what a thing is supposed to be when we see in media and elsewhere, right? A new thing being added and construing that with a finished thing. But the thing is, CAG is not doing particularly anything. In fact, they're often encouraging that sort of a feel or that perception that it's working, it's finished, or rather, well, maybe misleading a little bit. One would say about the state of it.
Yeah, I don't take this my complaint as talking about the people. I'm not laying blame on anybody.
No,
In fact,
fair. I misunderstood this that part. Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
I would say that the best thing that they could do was work on their website and work on building a knowledge base of the features and the things that are in the game. Because right now, you could be like, okay, I want to know what's going on with ship docking. You search that online. CIG should have a page that says this is the ship, like this is what ship docking is used for, and these are the ships it works with.
But they have the what was it? The roadmap.
Oh well,
Tomato.
that's not. That doesn't even. They do have a knowledge base too. It's just very small
Actually,
and it's hard to find. But yeah, I think their
but it's your
biggest.
fault for not finding it. What are you, some sort of hater, Tomato? Come on, man.
I
It's
think
Star
that
Citizen. It's alpha.
that's the best thing they could do to fix that is because they have Inside Star Citizen and they kind of do it in Star Citizen Live. Those are like weekly things where they do it, but they're only covering a small amount of stuff there. Like if you want to find out what is the idea of mining, you got to go and look for a design document. You find out it's only been updated in 2015, and I know this stuff takes extra manpower, but like it would go a long way in helping people understand where the game is right now.
Not necessarily. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a paranoia for me, but it's part of marketing, right? They wouldn't be selling as many ships as they are if they presented Star Citizen with half as glossy trailers as they are right now. So it's part of the just marketing tactic, like it or not.
But
At
I'm
least
just
that's what I
talking
feel.
about just explainers, just like text pages saying this is what.
It takes extra effort,
Well,
fundamentally.
yeah,
So yeah, because of how open they're trying to look like, when it comes to actually giving that information, it's well, it takes extra manpower, and again, it slows down the just general development when somebody
yeah.
has to go and actually write it down. So you can understand their, well, I guess, apathy of not caring to really give that information. It's just it's somewhere there in the forums, or is there somewhere in the
Go
roadmap.
on YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it's that would take away from development funds. I'm sure plenty of people would honestly hate that and complain about it. So I get the decision, but I think that's probably my main gripe with the project right
It's a
now.
rock and a hard place with that sort of thing because of how they position themselves into and how their marketing works. So yeah,
Yeah. Any more
sadly, what
questions?
it. Well, let's see. Actually, share with the folks at home. What is your experience with the space sims?
I don't have much, actually.
Really?
Yeah, Star Citizen's my first space sim.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
fair
yeah, yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Okay, then just like me, you're coming from outside, at least back in the day
Yeah.
for me. Uh,
I
then
was
what is your background in gaming, at
right.
least?
So basically, I'm a lot like you. First person. I love first person games. My first major game that I got obsessed with was Halo. I played the entire series. I also enjoyed other games that were kind of like Halo, like Killzone, Resistance, Fall of Man. Those are the PlayStation versions. And I loved RPGs. So like Mass Effect was a big one for me. Knights of the Old Republic was good. The Witcher series is something that I enjoyed.
Have you played the first one?
The first one, yeah, that was.
Oh, you poor soul.
It's funny how much they progress through the games.
Oh.
Yeah. So those games I've really loved, and I've always liked RPG games, character and story-driven games, like games that are and immersive sims. So like Deus Ex, Prey, System Shock, stuff like that. So I've always liked that sort of interactivity you can get from a first-person game and RPGs, and that was I was looking for like Prey 2, the original concept for it, where you were like a space bounty hunter. I was looking at Star Wars 1313.
I remember.
I was excited for Mass Effect Andromeda, I think it might have been at the time. I was coming off of Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. Like I had this really strong urge.
But your pre-order now.
I was. Oh god, that was terrible. I was coming off this really, really strong phase of sci-fi, deep sci-fi games, and that's when I came across Star Citizen. I'm like, well, I can do all this in space. Okay, I'll sign up. And 10 years later, here I am.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Where I came from.
Fair enough. Let's see. Any other questions? Well, I guess I got nothing. So potato.
All right. No problem. That was kind of my job. Well, thank you, Yamiks, for coming onto the show and talking some
also, remember Star Citizen pay to win. Ha ha! Bye!
That's your sign off. Talking some intense Star Citizen. I love it. I really wanted to get a chance to look at it more critically with you and bounce off of each other. So thanks for coming on.
I'm here for you, buddy.
The drive-bys, yeah. I'm sure you'll be on again at some point, but before you go, let all the folks know where they can find your own content.
You see the name? There, somewhere there. Yeah.
Yep.
Search that. Simple
Links,
as that.
Yeah.
Without
links are down below.
THE, but whatever. 6 letters, not too hard to spell. So go for it.
It's
Although
American
easy. Countries, okay, 6 letters, not too hard. Please, America, Alabama, please learn. Education's good.
These are not statements endorsed or supported by Space Tomato Gaming. This is all Yamiks. Anyways, it's all down below in the show notes, so go check that out if you'd like to see more of his content. And of course, supporters who are here, if you're a supporter on Patreon, YouTube, or Twitch, you can come and watch these live, as well as getting exclusive videos, behind the scenes. And for some supporters, we actually just created a referral code randomizer. I know the Reddit has one, and we created one for Space Tomato, so you can click, and our supporters will get their referral codes used. You like that, Yamiks? You like that perk? You like free ships? Your favorite? He's putting up the Illuminati symbol.
Not exactly.
Oh, pyramid scheme. I mean, the referrals are like Tesla does referrals. It's a weird system.
So tell me,
whatever.
how do you like working without pay? How do you like being,
I'm fine because I get ships for it. I'm not working without pay. I also get a really good fun game to play
though. Literally, but anyways, okay, fine.
I don't need pay. That's the thing. Is like,
fair enough.
I see Star Citizen as like working as a QA, but I'm perfectly fine with it because I don't have to do it if I don't want to. I get to do it whenever I want.
Value your knowledge.
That's why that's kind of the point.
And don't let companies abuse you. That goes beyond Star Citizen and other things, just generally speaking. Value your time. Be creative and
Valuing my time is why I do podcasts like this instead of playing the game for 20 hours a week. That, my friends, is a statement towards the quality of the game right now. I mean, it's the case. I personally, I didn't play regularly until this year. Partially because my computer couldn't handle it, but also because I just wasn't quite there yet. And I feel like at this point now I'm willing to put probably like 5 to 8 hours in, 10 hours maybe a week. But I'm still not at that point where I'm like diving into it every day, hardcore. It's just not there yet, and I'm fine with admitting that.
Fair enough.
Anyways, that's the launch sequence. Thank you everybody for joining, whether you're on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Google, all the things. Thanks for joining for episode 104. It's been lovely. Keep a good smile on your face, and I'll see you all next week.